Burbidge, author of the book Watching Paint Dry. Today we're going to go over step 7 in the painting process, and that is spray painting your house. Now, I've already got the sprayer all set up in paint. If you want to know how to do that, see the other video on my website, how to set up a paint sprayer for spraying. And once you get outside and you're ready to start spraying the house, that's what this video is all about. Now, the first thing that I want you to remember, and this is the #1 cardinal rule of spraying, is that when you have that trigger pulled, your arm is always in motion. Okay? Because if you have that trigger pulled and you stop the gun and you're pointing at a spot on the house, boom, instantly you're going to have a big heavy spot of paint. That's how quick it comes out of here. So you always need to have your arm in motion when that trigger is pulled. That means you start your motion before you pull the trigger, then you pull the trigger, and you continue your motion after you let the trigger go. Alright, like this. Just like that. If you do that, you're guaranteed to never leave any heavy spots around, which is the #1 problem that a lot of people face when they're trying to spray a house. Now, the second thing that I want you to remember is that every time you do a turnaround in your spray motion, you're leaving a little heavy spot where you stopped the gun and turned it back the other direction. Now, how do you prevent that from happening? Well, what you do is when you reach that turnaround spot, you give a little subtle flick with your wrist out toward the edge. Now, I'm not talking about flicking it all the way behind you so that it goes on the neighbor's car. Okay, I'm just talking about a very subtle flick of the wrist to prevent heavy spots at your turnaround point. Now, if you can remember those two principles, you're going to get pretty good results from your spraying. I can promise you that. Now, there's two kinds of spraying. There's the kind of spraying that has to be back rolled, where you spray the paint on and then you go over it with a roller. If you have any kind of natural wood siding, anything that has a natural grain to it, or any type of stucco, anything that has porosity, you're going to have to back roll your paint after you spray it. Now, the other type of surface you might be spraying is something like this here. This is an engineered wood with a fake grain, similar to what that hardy plank, that cement composite siding that they use on a lot of houses these days would have. Now, this doesn't have a grain that needs to have the paint rolled into it. So I'm going to be able to spray this stuff and just let it dry, just walk away, and it looks really nice. Now, here's some other equipment that you're probably going to want to have on hand when you spray. First of all, a dust mask or a mist mask. I like to wear one of these masks when I'm spraying latex. If I were spraying oil, I'd probably be wearing a respirator. You're probably going to want to wear a spray sock, which is just a disposable covering that you put over your head because you're going to be kind of immersed in overspray all day long. And you might want your wimpy gloves. And then the last thing you might want is some eye protection. Now, yesterday I sprayed the soffits all the way around the house and the gutters. Now, here's a few clips from that adventure. Now, when you're spraying something like this, you need to be very careful that that paint isn't getting blown right up around onto the roof, especially if that roof is easily seen from the ground. Now, on a day like today, it's just blowing off into the wind. There's really nothing up there that I can hit. Now, one more note about this. If these were factory finished gutters, I would actually need to tape them off with paper and tape before I could spray these soffits, because I would not want to be getting any overspray up around onto those gutters. Now, you masked the house maybe yesterday, the day before. Some of that masking will have come up a little bit. So the first thing you need to do before you spray any section is you need to go over that masking again with your finger, real firm. Make sure it's on there real tight. Okay, now I've got this all cut in here up against the soffit, and I'm ready to spray it and then back roll it. Now, I'm going to need to keep my gun angled down so that I definitely don't shoot any overspray up into that soffit. Wunderbar. Okay, now we've sprayed and back rolled the upper siding, and now we're going to tackle the lower siding. Now this is a little trickier because you're not going to have the roller coming behind you to fix your mistakes. So you need to be more precise. Now as far as the amount of paint to put on, it's really trial and error. Keep a careful eye out for light spots. Go back and look at the places that you've painted. If you see the undercoat speckling through there, then you didn't put enough on. Okay, now I'm going to drop down a couple boards and go back. Notice how I'm making sure to get up into that underside. You get to little spots like this, kind of just spray behind them, but make sure you're always moving that arm. As long as it's still wet, you can touch up little spots. Just always remember, arm in motion. These little edges of the windows and doors here, they're real easy to miss, but they'll stand out later if you don't get them. So, just like that, and you got them. As soon as you're done spraying an area and the paint's had maybe an hour or a little more to dry, so it's dry to the touch, you're going to want to start thinking about getting that masking off the windows, because the longer it sits on there, more chance there is that the tape's going to leave behind some sticky residue. Okay, now you know the key concepts involved in spray painting your house. Now if you are going to spray your house, I recommend you go to my website, howtopaintahouserite.com, where you'll also find a video on brushing and rolling your house. There's a lot of key concepts in that video that I don't want you to miss out on, and you're probably going to have to brush and roll some sections of the house anyway. Now on my website, of course, you'll find a lot of helpful information, as well as a complete series of videos that I've created to help you paint your house right.